All right, good morning. It's Bernard Nomberg with another weekly episode of Nomberg Law Live. As we do each Tuesday at 10 o'clock, we try to bring you interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And I've got my buddy Brit Bragg. Hey, Brit, how are you doing?
Good morning. Doing good. Thank you
I,
for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate you spending some time this morning and taking some time. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of different things, but most specifically, we're going to talk about practicing law that is a real specialty in Alabama in front of the Poarch Creek Indians. And I appreciate that you have the time and have the specialty to be able to talk about this for a few minutes. How's the Montgomery weather treating you today?
Today is gloomy, but it's not raining, so I'm very thankful for that. It was absolutely beautiful yesterday,
This
and
past
that's been.
weekend it was fantastic this
Mhm.
weekend. But nobody wants to hear me talk about that. But let's before we really get
Let's talk
into
about the weather for an
That's
hour.
right. We're just going to talk about the weather today. Well, Britt, tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice. I know you practice with Bill Abell in Montgomery, and you guys do a lot of the same kind of work that my brother David and I do up here in Birmingham. But you also have some other areas that y'all practice in. So share a little bit about your background as well as your practice at Abell and Bragg.
Right. So I have worked with Bill for about 7 years. I clerked with him while I was in law school for 2 years, and then just started working with him. We worked with another firm for a few years, and then about a year ago decided to be law partners and just break off and do our own thing. So we're doing the work comp and social security like you guys, and then I was doing some tribal law and domestic. I do some domestic and child custody issues like that, and our main focus has been work comp and social security. But with the tribal law, that was something that I kind of just wanted to dabble into and see what it's all about. I like having niches, and work comp is definitely a niche. And so I wanted another niche with tribal law.
Well, it certainly is because not a lot of people, not a lot of lawyers who I know different parts of the state, not many people have that certification or that ability. And I forgot to hit record, so pardon me for just a second. That's kind of rude of me, but anyway. I don't know what the percentages are of people who actually have that certification, but how does a lawyer reach that status, or how did you get qualified or approved to practice in front of them?
I had to apply, and I
Hmm.
had to have some recommendation letters, and the tribal council actually had to vote on whether they wanted to allow me to practice before them or not. And then you just kind of get your certificate in the mail that, hey, everybody voted and they've agreed. And I don't think that it has to be unanimous. I think you just have to have more people than not.
And what is that? Let's talk about I practice in state court like you do. I practiced a little bit in federal court. Social Security has its own. But when you're in front of the tribal council, that's a completely different set of rules, regulations, laws, etc. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but I want you to share with us a little bit of your understanding. What can kind of do a little comparison? What are scenarios? What are some fact patterns, if you will, that might take you in front of the tribal council for a
Sure.
legal matter?
Sure. So the tribal court has its own code, and you can get that code off of their website, and they are going by that. That's their rules. They have the immunity with the state, and they have some very strict rules. I mean, their reporting guidelines are a lot different than they are in state court. For example, with workers' compensation, you know that we can get something in reported within 90 days. Well, the tribal court wants 30 days, and they want written claim with, there's like 10 things that you've got to meet within your written claim, and they're not playing around. And they want everything to be sent by certified mail. Now, in state court, we can use Alifile, or we can use Pacer, or whatever online filing system we can use to check the status of our court. But the Poarch Bandar Creek Indians don't have that yet. And they had told me that they were working on getting it, but that just makes it harder because you don't know when things have been received or not. I'm on the phone with the judicial assistant saying, hey, did you get this? You know, because I've got to wait for that return green stamp thing saying that they got it. So that made things a little difficult and a little uneasy for me, just waiting on the mail to get everything there. But you actually do get appointed a judge on your cases. You're not going before the full tribal council, but all of your claims are going to pass through a claims administrator, and that claims administrator is going to decide whether you have a claim or you don't. And if they decide that you don't, then you're going to have to either file a complaint with a tort action, or you're going to have to file an appeal with a comp case. And like I said, there's very strict timeline limitations with that.
Brit, does everything remain in their courts system, or is there an appeal process that gets you out of there into state or federal court?
As far as I understand it, everything is within their system. I know there have been some cases that have been filed in state court and circuit court and Supreme Court, and I believe those cases are still going. I think that the immunity issue is a very large issue that just is still being worked out.
Well, what type of cases can come before the council? What type of matters have you done in the past?
Sure. I have done the personal injury claims, and I've done some work comp stuff. They have all kinds of cases. It's very similar to state actions that you can bring. They just limit their damages, and they kind of decide on pain and suffering. It's up to them if they allow it. So they have a lot of control over it, but the code that they provide you on their website kind of puts that out there for you. But the most luck that I've had with it has been personal injury cases with a third party involved. Because the tribal council and their investigative procedures are very helpful in getting the case resolved. So if there's another party involved, they're going to help you with that. So that I liked that part. So if there's a third party, you should go handle that.
Well, where does the court physically sit? Is it located in Alabama?
It is. It's in Atmore. It's on the reservation. Okay. So they have their own office and they have their own library, and that's where they keep their cases. So they do keep up with cases and rulings, kind of like we would use Westlaw or LexisNexis. You've got to physically go to the library and look up their cases.
So if you've got a case down there, you may be on their property doing any research and those kind of things. It's not online, other than maybe the rules and regulations may be published, because I think I have found them in the National Indian Law Library of all places. The Tribal Code is a place where I have found it. And I'm going to put that in the notes here. And one gentleman who I think you know, Mr. Eric Marshall, says, "Looking great, Mrs. Brit Bragg Marshall." And Jonathan McCardle is joined in and watching. And Ashley Harris is liking our video here, our talk. And awesome. Amy Mutrix, my buddy up in St. Louis area. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Well, isn't Eric Marshall just the nicest guy?
Oh, I understand he's a pretty good dude. But guys, I'm talking with Montgomery, Alabama attorney Brit Bragg, and we're talking more specifically about practicing in front of the tribal council. I don't know if you guys, and Stacy Hayes, Holly has joined us, so thank you all. If you have questions, comments, just throw them in the notes, and I'll be able to field them and get them to Brit. Brit, when you go down to that property down in Atmore, take us through, for people who've never been on the property, what is it? What are you going to? What is it like there? It's
just a building, just like any other courthouse. It's got a library. It has the tribal court area. I haven't had to go physically there a lot. A lot of stuff, we're just negotiating over the phone. They have in-house counsel that they use, and they have their own insurance company. They use Tribal First a lot with their stuff. So it's just normal. just like your regular state court. It's just a brick building that you're just going to go into, nothing real serious or different.
Is it on the same physical grounds as the casino and the resort down there?
No, it's so the casino is kind of out by the interstate,
Mm-hmm.
and then the reservation in the court is back down. I think it's Jack Springs Road
Okay.
is what it's off of. So yeah, they're separated.
Okay. And Britt, what has been your experience? Because nothing really seems to be online. It's probably like practicing before the internet really became part of everybody's daily, weekly practice. Is it from a standpoint of negotiations with dealing with in-house counsel, if you will? I don't know if that's the proper designation, but when dealing with those folks, is it pretty informal, or do you find it to be a little bit more formal than dealing with a work comp case or a car accident case where you've dealt with opposing counsel or opposing insurance adjusters on numerous cases in the past? What kind of vibe do you get, I guess, is the question.
I think it is very much more formal when it comes to communication because you've very much got to keep your own paper trail. Mm-hmm. And so I send a lot more letters and certified. I just make sure because they don't have that filing system. But when I deal with the people, when I call the judicial assistant or when I call the defense attorney, they're just normal people and they're willing to help you and answer your questions. So that part of it is fine. But if I'm requesting something or acknowledging I received something, I'm not just going to pick up the phone and say, hey, I got it. I'm going to send a formal letter for that.
Let's go through an example and kind of walk me through some of this. Let's say that I'm coming to the resort, the casino, and I have a trip and fall and I break my leg as a guest inside the casino. Mm-hmm. And then I know I need an attorney because they're ignoring my comments, or not my comments, but my communications. Hey, I fell in your casino because the seam of the carpet had come up. Y'all hadn't repaired it. My foot got caught underneath, and down I went. So I come to you, and Britt, I need representation. What kind of time limit do I have in order to make a claim to get the case into court? Take us through a little bit of that part.
Sure. So you have got, for a tort, for a slip and fall like you're discussing, you've got 90 days to file the written complaint to the claims administrator. So with that, you would go, there's a section 29-2-5 in the travel code will detail what needs to be in this written claim. And that needs to be sent certified to the claims administrator. And then the claims administrator takes 90 days to review it. And sometimes they can ask for an extension and they can get that. If you haven't had any response or anything to work it out within 120 days, you can then file a complaint with a tribal court. Now, your complaint,
that's like filing a lawsuit.
It is filing a lawsuit, and that has to be against the gaming authority. And it's very important that you name the proper party that you're serving, or your case is going to be dismissed. And there's just so many time bar clauses in the code that it's just a very meticulous area of the law. And so then once you file your complaint, you get it served just like any other lawsuit. And then I believe that you have to file a motion to produce discovery. And I know I did that, and I may have done it out of an air of caution, but I think that you can't just do discovery in it. Sure. But that's going to be, and then you're just going to work it like a normal lawsuit, but you're probably going to have to call and say, hey, have I been set for anything? Because you're not going to trust your own mail. And so you're just going to need to be on hyper alert with those types of cases to make sure you're not missing any hearings or anything like that.
I was just getting ready to say, it sounds like, again, practicing before the internet, you really had a lot more. If you missed some deadlines, you could be in trouble from that
Right.
standpoint. And then let's talk about, can you resolve a claim before having a final adjudication, before a trial, just like you would in a state court or federal court type of matter?
You absolutely can, and I've done that. And you just file a motion to dismiss, and,
Okay.
and they're fine with it. They really haven't given me much trouble. There was one case that I ended up having to withdraw from, and they didn't give me any problems with. I just filed my motion to withdraw, explained why I was no longer a fit for this case, and they were fine with that.
I want to welcome Stephanie Waddell and Priscilla Dennard, and forgive me if I pronounced your names incorrectly, but thank you guys for spending some time. I'm talking with Brit Bragg, Montgomery, Alabama attorney. We're talking about practicing in front of a tribal council. And I guess the last questions that I had about our little scenario here is, if you have to go to a trial, an actual trial, is it in front of a multi-judge panel or a jury, or kind of give us a little bit of that?
When I never had to try mine. Mine did resolve, but they were before a judge, a single judge, the ones that I had. So,
well, it's kind of like a work comp case for us in state court, not with the jury.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. I guess what would be a couple of your takeaways if you're giving a lecture to people who are interested and if they happen to get hurt, or you've got a new potential client sitting across the desk, what are some things that the general public should know that maybe they don't know about once they come onto the reservation or the properties as guests, and they're not thinking about legal matters, of course. They're there to enjoy their time, regardless of what they may be doing. What are some things that the general public may not know, Britt?
They really need to pay attention to alcohol. People come to me and they say, I slipped and I fell over something, probably slip and fall worthy, but I had 3 beers. And that is just kind of the atmosphere of a casino in general. You have a few drinks and you loosen up and you have a good time. So I would just say if they're going to drink, they really need to be focused on what they're doing and where they're going. Another problem I've had is people will get hurt and they won't realize how bad they're hurt because it takes a few days. And so they didn't report it to any staff, and they didn't take note of where they were. I've had people get hurt in specific, like by an elevator, but they couldn't remember which elevator. And it's little details like that really do make a difference. And they really, really need to report it, even if it's nothing, even if they think it's nothing, because it could manifest into something else. So that's what I would recommend people do. Even if you just bump something, or, just go ahead and report it. That way you have made known that actually did happen.
Yeah, you've got to record what happened, or it's going to be much harder. It's like anything else, like any other event or accident. It sounds like that if you don't report it and you don't record it, then how do you, how are you going to be successful for pursuing your claim?
Right, and I always tell my clients, just go to the Dollar Tree and get one of those dollar big calendars and just write down everything that's happened, who you talked to, what their contact information is, if you went to the doctor, where you went on what day, so that you don't come to me and say, well, I think it was 3 weeks ago. I don't know. I don't remember his name. Those types of things. They just make it harder and delay the process.
Well, it's all very good information. So thank you for sharing about practicing before the tribal council. And like I said earlier, not many people have that designation. Not many lawyers in our state have that designation. So just finding a little bit about the procedures and policies is very, very helpful. So thank you for that part. But we're not finished just yet, as you and I have talked about. And I want to give a shout out to Allison, who says, "Look at my best friend go." And I assume she's not talking about this guy. She's talking about you. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm talking with Brit Bragg out of Montgomery. We've been talking about tribal council practice, but we're going to shift a little bit. And we're going to talk about that life-work balance for the busy professional.
Yeah.
And just from what I've seen in our prior talks and what I've seen on social, you and Eric do such a great job of having that balance of, yes, I've got to get in my work and it's a lot of responsibilities and this is what I do for my profession, but I love what I do. But I also love a whole bunch of other things in life. So being
Yes.
a lawyer, I've always felt it doesn't define specifically and only who I am. And it sounds like you guys, you've taken that same healthy approach to that. So I want to ask you, what are some of those things that you do to kind of de-stress, to help with your health? What things
Sure.
do you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that help with that?
Sure. One thing that I had to learn is that I need to not check my email when I am not at work if there's nothing I can do about what they're going to email me about. So what I mean by that is when I get home and it's 5:30, 6 o'clock, the courthouse is closed. There's really not much that I'm going to be able to do if someone's having an emergency. And I think that that really helps my mental health, because I was checking my email all the time, feeling like I needed to stay on top. And I had to just come to terms that this is a profession where you're not up to date. This is a profession where we are always feeling behind, and we just prioritize. And I'm very organized and I'm a big planner. So if Eric and I have something that we want to do, we want to go to friends' weddings, or we just want to go to the beach or go out in the boat, I manage my time during the week to make that happen. So that's really what we do. We love to go out in the boat, and our families are huge to us, and we don't have any family in Montgomery, so it requires us to travel to see them. So we just have to make the time to do it, and we plan everything out. My mom texted me last week and said, "Hey, I want to come up next weekend." And I said, "Okay, great. Now I know, like, I need to get this weekend banged out so that I can go grocery shop or get my house clean or whatever, so that we can make that family time work." So it really is a conscious effort to prioritize.
It sounds like staying organized, sticking to a plan when you're away
Mm-hmm.
from work, even though you still may be thinking about certain cases or what's happened immediately when you leave or what you've got the next day.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you stay organized by staying on task.
Right.
And I'm going to assume that you've got the support staff in the office also follows that same protocol. That there's probably also, and tell me if I'm wrong, there's probably emergency policies and things that if something really comes up, they know they can get in touch with you.
Always. They can text me all the time. I don't have a "don't call me about work" issue. If I'm out of the office, say I want to take a Friday off and go, I tell them this is still work time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you call me and let me know. And so they do a good job of that. And I think that we have a really great staff right now, and they just kind of get what's important. And if they think that maybe it's important, maybe it's not, they bring it to me anyway. And it really is a self-control thing, because I'm very type A, and that can get the best of me. So.
And we've got a couple of comments to share with you along those lines. I want to welcome Amy Cobb Smith, my dad in Gulf Shores.
Hi,
Ashley
Amy.
Harris says, how do you turn your work brain off when you're at home? Sometimes it's definitely a struggle. And Ashley, it's always been that way for me, and it is for
Mm-hmm.
many, many people. But what I think you're kind of describing some of those things that you do. But if you're watching a movie or you're out on the boat, how do you flip that switch for a while?
It's 100% true that is hard. But what I do is I will text myself reminders, because there are things that you pop in your head and you're like, I got to get that motion filed by Monday. I'm going to forget to file that Monday. And I've just started texting it to myself and saying, hey, you need to file that motion. This is what you need to put in it. And then it's there and it's out of my brain. And so as long as I address it as soon as it hits my head, of like a reminder to shift it, I'm very big into compartmentalizing. And so that is just one of the ways that helps me do that. And I'm always looking ahead. I'm always looking at the next week anyway. So a lot of things
Yep.
don't really just come out of nowhere and shock me, unless it's like a motion for summary judgment I'm not expecting or something like that. But
Well,
does that answer the question?
it does. And I was going to add the one thing that I have kind of trained myself to do is before I go home every day, I spend 5 to 10 minutes looking at my next 2 days calendar and deadlines so that when I leave, I'm not surprised, like you said. Some things
Exactly.
you can't, when you get a sudden motion or whatever, you can't anticipate that, but it's very true. Now, I have a question for you. How far is it from Gulf Shores to Goshen, Mississippi? Any idea?
About an hour and a half.
Oh, that's not far.
No, I'm like 20 minutes from Biloxi.
Very good. Does your mom still live down there? Is that where she's
She does.
talking about coming up? All right, you go from Goshen, Mississippi to South Alabama for undergrad.
Yep.
You work at Bumhauer's for about 14 or 15 years.
Pretty much.
You finally make your way up to Jones, where now in Montgomery, we both went to the same law school, just several years apart. But let's talk about Leonardo. Who is Leonardo and why is he so important in your life?
Leonardo is my baby. He is my turtle that I have had for 12 years. He will be 13 in May. So I got Leonardo in 2008, and they don't tell you when you're like an 18-year-old kid buying a turtle that they have a life expectancy of 35 years.
Wow.
I've always loved animals and pets, and I've always been able to like nurture them to live forever. So I will probably have this turtle for 100 years. But
what kind of turtle is it? How big is it?
He's a yellow-bellied slider, and he's about this big. He's about probably 6 by 7 inches.
And how does Eric tolerate this turtle in his life?
He loves him. Eric actually dug him a pond when we got our house.
Excellent.
And he was like, I think he didn't realize how hard it is to dig a hole, but now he's proud of it. And that was my one goal. My one promise to Leonardo was when I get out of law school and buy a house, I'm going to build you a pond. And so I've accomplished that. And now all of my goals are met in my life, and I'm good to go.
Oh boy. Well, I'm going to ask you for when we're finished for a photo, if you'll post a photo of
Absolutely.
Leonardo in the comments, but we're getting close to the end of our discussion, Brit, and I appreciate your time this morning. It's been fun. I hope that it hadn't been too much of a burden on you.
No.
But I want to, first of all, before we finish, how can folks get in touch with you if they have legal questions about tribal counsel, work comp in the Montgomery area? What's a good contact phone number or website? We want to make sure we put that in there.
Yeah. The office number is the area code 334-271-8008. And I have an email address that I don't mind some people like to keep their email hidden. I'm like, this is me. Come with it. So that's bbragg@abellandbragg.com. So it's bbragg@abellandbragg.com. I've got a Facebook page, Brittany S. Bragg. We have a website. I probably should know it. I can share
I put
it.
the link. I put the link to the website in there, and I wanna welcome Judge Chad Hansen is watching us.
Hi,
And Cece, good to see you guys. Thank you for tuning in for a minute. Adrian says, "Go Brit." Last thing in closing, at your wedding, it's been rumored that somewhere in the neighborhood of about 200 former Bumhauer Wings Mobile area employees showed up unannounced or announced. I didn't get that detail. You got to share the fact that you worked there when you were in, I assume, undergrad. So take us through the invasion of the Bumhauer, the reunion at your wedding. Before we conclude.
Sure. I started when I first moved to Mobile to go to South Alabama. I was an 18-year-old kid, little brat, and that was my job while I was in school, and then I stayed there for 5 years after that. So what does that make me? 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So that is a huge maturity level and growth. And so for 5 years, I made my very best friends there. And you just develop such a tight bond when you're both in the grind, when you're just both trying to reach the same goal and you depend on each other to get there. And so I kept those lifelong friendships that I made and invited them to my wedding. And that's what everyone was saying. They were just like, oh my gosh, this is a Wings reunion. And it really was. I mean, I can send you a group photo that we took with the people there. But yes, I mean, they traveled from all over the place to come to my wedding, because we've all just kind of done different things with our lives since then. But yeah, I mean, Baumhauer's will always have a special place in my heart because I did so much growing there and I had so much support there.
Well, that's awesome. And by chance, did you serve wings at the reception?
No, I didn't. I didn't think that was appropriate for my white dress.
That's very funny. I want to welcome our buddy in Fairhope, Lindsay Simmons, attorney and good friend of ours. Hey, Lindsay, thanks for tuning in for a minute. Well, Britt, I think we've come to the end of our conversation for today, and I sure appreciate your sharing your experiences about practicing in front of the tribal council, about the work-life balance that you and Eric and Leonardo so very well do. Thank you again for your time, and I hope that the rest of your day is a good one.
Thank you, Bernard. I appreciate it. It's nice to have friends who are in the same field. We should be enemies, right? But we're not. We're friends.
That's right. We're not. That's one of the as a side note, it's one of the real good things about practicing the type of cases that we do, work comp and Social Security. It's really a lot of sharing, and that's what makes the practice so good and so enjoyable. But guys, this will conclude us for another episode of NOMBERG Law Live every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. Brit certainly fits that bill. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you another time.